during weeks of training is lost in a grueling process called weight cutting, an activity potentially more dangerous than the fight itself. Using severe dehydration tactics such as sitting in 90-degree hot saunas and taking near boiling baths, the sportsmen and women are able to shed pounds to allow them to compete in their chosen category. Over the years, we have seen many MMA fighters step up to the scale to only have the fight cancelled due to the fact that they couldn't stand up on their own or their body couldn't handle it. For this video, we have compiled the list of instances where fights were cancelled due to weight cuts that put the fighter's health at major risk. So without further ado, these are the weight cuts that cancelled MMA fights. Number 10. Yulia Stoliarenko. UFC fans are used to seeing fighters hit the deck, but even they got shook on that Friday when bantamweight Yulia Stoliarenko fainted twice as she weighed in, forcing the cancellation of her bout against Julia Avila on Saturday in Las Vegas. Video footage on social media showed the 27-year-old Lithuanian staggering backwards off the scales before falling. After recovering briefly on a chair, she stepped onto the scales again with the read in proximity and made the required weight of 135.5 pounds. However, as she stepped off, she collapsed again and was later removed from the venue on a stretcher, and her fight with Avila was cancelled. Number 9. Renan Barão. Renan Barão was forced to pull out of his scheduled main event rematch against TJ Dillashaw at UFC 177 on Saturday night, just 24 hours before the main event, due to an accident that took place while he was cutting weight for the fight.
Renan, what went wrong yesterday?
I was dehydrating in the bathtub. I fainted. I hit my head. I was taken to the hospital. I don't remember anything that happened before or after. I just remember being waken up in the hospital already.
Barão's team sent out a release claiming that Barão felt dizzy while coming out of his bathtub in his hotel room, and as a result, fell and hit his head on the bathtub and then passed out. The report claims that Barão was rushed to the hospital after this accident and thus was forced to pull out of his UFC 177 pay-per-view match. This prompted their fight to be postponed to a later date, causing Joe Soto to step in. Number 8. Ryan Benoit. Ryan Benoit was removed from UFC 27 in Las Vegas after a scary scene at weigh-ins. A wobbly Benoit was helped off the scale by UFC security and Crowder. According to ESPN, Benoit was then escorted backstage and assessed by a doctor before making a second attempt at the weigh-in. Still unable on his own, Benoit stood long enough to officially weigh in at 129 pounds, 3 pounds overweight. This prompted for the fight to be called off. Number 7. Drakkar Klose. Though weight cutting wasn't the main culprit in this one, it definitely played its role. UFC Vegas 24 on that Saturday night, which lost its co-main between Jeremy Stephens and Drakkar Klose after Stephens shoved Klose during the weigh-ins. Whoa. Oh. No. Hey. What the fuck? It turns out that unexpectedly shoving someone who has just severely dehydrated themselves to make weight is a pretty bad idea, because the push resulted in a cervical neck sprain, also known as whiplash, and gave him a brain concussion. This was all confirmed by a CT scan and diagnosis from the hospital Klose was sent to after he woke up disoriented and throwing up on fight day. Number 6. Johnny Hendricks. Former UFC welterweight champion Johnny Hendricks was hospitalized after experiencing problems with his weight cut, forcing the cancellation of his fight with Tyron Woodley in the co-main event of UFC 192 in Houston on that Saturday. Hendricks suffered blockage in his intestine and a kidney stone, forcing an IV to be administered, according to reports quoting his manager Ted Earhart. Hendricks checked into the hospital with a kidney stone and an intestinal blockage, both of which are clearly attributable to a difficult weight cut. Number 5. Rafael Alves. In his weigh-in, Rafael Alves wasn't even close.
157.5.
Official weight 157.5 for Rafael Alves.
He didn't just miss weight, he didn't come anywhere near the needed number. The UFC fighter weighed in at 157.5 pounds, 11.5 pounds over the mark, for a scheduled featherweight bout against Patrick Sabatini. As a result, the fight was removed from that Saturday's UFC Vegas 19 card. Alves apologized on social media, writing on Instagram that he was ill during his attempt to make weight. It's the biggest weight miss in the sport's history. He would have missed weight if he were fighting at lightweight, the next division up. Number 4, Paul Daly. The main events of Bellator 247 had fallen through. This is because Paul Daly had to be rushed to the hospital. The Bellator star was set to face Derek Anderson in an event that was planned to take place in Milan, Italy. The British welterweight had weighed in at 173.6 pounds for the welterweight fight. As per on-ground reports, he was taken to the hospital before he could show up for the ceremonial weigh-ins. Consequently, the main event was cancelled. Number 3, Bobby Green. The planned lightweight fight between Bobby Green and Jim Miller for UFC 258 was then cancelled. While Green had successfully weighed in for the fight at 155.5 pounds, UFC President Dana White later told reports in a media scrum after the stare-downs that Green had collapsed backstage. White stated, "Bobby Green just collapsed back there. Doctors are looking at him, they're trying to rehydrate him right now." Officials for the promotion later confirmed that the fight had been cancelled. No details were provided on Green or his health status. Number 2, Yang Jinbing. Chinese mixed martial arts fighter Yang Jinbing died on Friday, December 11, 2015, at the age of 21 due to heart failure resulting from an attempt to cut weight for an upcoming bout. Bing was scheduled to compete in One Championship 35 in the Philippines, but the organization announced the day before that the match was cancelled due to Bing suffering from severe dehydration and a suspected heat stroke. Sadly, this is not the first time that the practice of cutting weight has taken a life. In 2013, MMA fighter Leandro Souza collapsed after weighing in for an event in Brazil and later died from complications. Number 1, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib Nurmagomedov, who famously called McGregor a chicken at UFC 205 at Madison Square Garden, was set to fight Tony Ferguson for the interim UFC lightweight title a few years back, but did not even show up for the weigh-ins. Instead, a UFC spokesperson stood up and announced Nurmagomedov had unspecified health problems during his cut and had been rushed to the hospital in the middle of the night. The fight was cancelled because Nurmagomedov was not given any medical clearance by doctors. Nurmagomedov's case was notable not only because the title was on the line, but because the 24-0 fighter was experiencing symptoms not normally associated with weight cutting. Nurmagomedov revealed things got so bad that he couldn't remember large chunks of the day before the weigh-in. What is y'all's thoughts on weight cuts? Is there a better alternative, or should fighters not fight in that weight class anymore? And that right there concludes this list. Let us know how we did in the comments below. Alright MMA fans, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, make sure to hit the notification bell, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Also, don't forget to comment below what video you want to see next. Anytime one of the UFC's fighters uncorks a brutal knockout, it is entertaining, but some knockouts are just more aesthetically pleasing than others. Sure, a heavy right hand is great to see, but it doesn't compare to the sheer thrill of watching a knockout via a more low percentage strike like the flying knee. Over the years, we've seen some spectacular flying knees in the UFC, but some stand out a little more than others. The sheer impact and element of surprise should more often than not deliver a highlight reel knockout of epic proportions. For this video, we have compiled the list of instances where MMA fighters use the flying knee to completely dispatch their opponents. So without further ado, these are the deadliest flying knee knockouts ever seen part 2. Number 12, Adam Boric. Adam Boric scored his second flying knee knockout with Bellator in the second round of his bout against top prospect Aaron Pico back at Bellator 222. The flying knee wasn't a finisher, but Pico was in no position to defend himself after eating this one for dinner. Pico's game plan was working. He utilized his grappling effectively to neutralize Boric. In the second stanza, Boric had enough and landed a devastating flying knee that ended Pico's night. Aaron was only able to last about 3 seconds till Dan Miragliotta was able to pull Adam off his foe. Number 11, Taiwan Claxton. Bellator MMA's Taiwan Claxton made an impressive debut by knocking out Johnny Bonilla Bowman in the first round with a flying knee. It took the 24-year-old featherweight just 90 seconds to land the beautiful flying knee that put his opponent away.
Right through the center with the knee. No follow-up, no ground and pound, one.
The kick completely KO'd Bowman, and as he laid unconscious, Claxton celebrated by climbing on the cage with his arms aloft. It took almost 2 minutes for Johnny Bowman to return to his corner. He also needed help to leave the cage as the flying knee kick took its toll on the featherweight. Number 10, James Irvin. At the time, UFC color commentator Joe Rogan called it the best flying knee he had ever seen. Maybe coincidentally, it was the first recorded flying knee finish in UFC history.
James Irvin, oh, giant. It is all over the flying knee. My James Irvin has knocked out Terry Martin.
The meeting of the knee to head was a surefire knockout, and the Sandman never needed to even look back to know he was victorious. Number 9, BJ Penn. This fight featured vintage Penn, and his flying knee will be forever remembered as one of the greatest ever.
JC, his hands are more closed and he steps forward.
It wasn't a full knockout, but the Muscle Shark couldn't continue into the next round, granting Penn the win by TKO. Near the end of the third round, Penn timed a flying knee as Shirk rebounded off the cage, magnifying the damage caused by the strike. Left in a heap against the fence, Shirk hit a few more punches before the round came to an end. Number 8, Anderson Silva. Seeing the shoot coming from a mile away, Silva timed Newton and met him halfway with one of the greatest flying knees in the history of the sport.
Yeah. I don't think that would be a good idea, though. Oh! No way! He's out! He's out! He's out! He's out! He's out!
The knee crashed into Newton's forehead, driving Newton backward in the center of the ring. Silva seized on the opportunity and proceeded to finish Newton with strikes from a standing position. It was one of Pride's all-time best knockouts. Number 7, Fabricio Verdum. Fabricio Verdum beat Mark Hunt at UFC 180 in Mexico City with a vicious flying knee to claim the interim heavyweight title. This flying knee turned Mark Hunt's lights off so easily.
Nice knee. He got him. Verdum trying to finish.
Verdum caught Hunt open and punished him by punting his head like a football. The fight was not ended right when the knee had landed. Herb Dean gave Mark a few more seconds to prove that he could feel that his face was being pummeled in before he called off the bout due to him not fully defending himself. Number 6, Leandro Ataides. A patient Leandro Ataides struck suddenly with thunder with 6 seconds left in the second round of his middleweight 1 contest against Muhammad Ali to win by flying knee KO.
Smarter fighter trying to take this fight into the deep water, and
It was a pause, however, that set up a flying knee strike from the Brazilian to the head of Ali, who was backed against the cage. The knee connected and immediately slumped Ali to the mat. The end came at 4 minutes and 54 seconds of the second round. Number 5, Robbie Lawler. In an amazing display of explosiveness, Lawler leaped in the air and landed a flying knee that abruptly sent a previously upright Villasenor onto his back at Pride 32.
Stand up Morris right away, Lawler.
Establishing himself as a legitimate threat in the sport, Lawler wasted little time before landing a brutal flying knee on his opponent. Villasenor dropped to the canvas, and after a few follow-up shots from the Ruthless One, the fight was over just 22 seconds into the opening round. Number 4, Diego Ribas. Diego Ribas had delivered one of the most horrific blows in UFC history after felling his rival with the brutal flying knee at Fight Night in Las Vegas.
He's got to avoid the clinch. And oh, huge knee, got him! Wow! How about Diego Ribas?
Dominated by Nawad Lahat throughout the first round, and early in the second round, the Chilean fighter delivered with a strike that will long be remembered by fight fans. Standing in the middle of the ring, Ribas pounced as his opponent went low for a takedown move, crushing Lahat's face with a flying knee that connected with a sickening crunch. Number 3, Martin Nguyen. Martin Nguyen added another spectacular knockout to his highlight reel of finishes to defend his 1 featherweight world title at 1 Roots of Honor. The Vietnamese Australian returned to action in Manila, Philippines, and stopped former world champion Tunga Jadamba with a stunning flying knee to retain his belt in breathtaking style. This knee practically sucked the life out of his opponent, causing him to lie on the mat completely out cold. Number 2, Brian Rogers. Bellator veterans Vitor Viana and Brian Rogers were expected to bring fireworks when they squared off. But that fireworks show would end when Brian Rogers landed a crazy flying knee that pushed the power button on Vitor.
No, that was a good run. I think he's out. That is it.
Rogers rocked Viana with a right cross and followed up with a highlight reel flying knee that sent the Brazilian Viana to the canvas. Referee Jason Herzog stepped in to stop the fight at 4 minutes and 14 seconds of the first round and gave Brian Rogers the knockout victory. Number 1, Michael Page. Bellator competitor Michael Page landed a flying knee on Evangelista Cyborg Santos with such ferocity that it fractured his skull. No, for real, this knee was so powerful that it caused Cyborg's skull to cave in.
Just about everything you need in a fight, you lose off the liver shot. It can come back. Cyborg runs into the jump knee, and it's over.
The British welterweight had no idea at the time the extent of the injury to Santos' skull in the fight at Bellator London. MVP pulled out a Pokemon celebration with his opponent still down but conscious and cradling his face. Photos later emerged of Santos in the hospital with fractures visible on his forehead and an x-ray which showed the true toll that Sledgehammer knee took on him. And that right there concludes this video. Let us know how he did in the comments below. Alright MMA fans, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, make sure to hit the notification bell, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Also, don't forget to comment below what video you want to see next. On Saturday night, Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier will settle a rivalry that dates back to 2014 when they battled at UFC 264. The combatants first met in 2014 on McGregor's rise to superstardom when the Irishman scored a first-round TKO of Poirier. Then the two met 7 years later in January in the lightweight division with Poirier evening the score with a second-round TKO of his own. Now they look to put the final touches on this rivalry in arguably the biggest pay-per-view event of the year. There's a lot more action set for the card, including a big welterweight co-main event between former welterweight title contenders Stephen Thompson and Gilbert Burns as well, and bantamweight star Sean O'Malley versus Chris Moutinho. Will Conor be able to overcome the defeat from January, or will Dustin the Diamond Poirier be able to put the nail in the coffin and be able to end this trilogy on his own terms? Without further ado, this is what actually happened at UFC 264. First, we'll quickly talk about the fight between Sean O'Malley vs Chris Moutinho and Gilbert Burns vs Stephen Thompson before we move on to the main segment of the video. Sean O'Malley vs Chris Moutinho. Rising bantamweight star Sean O'Malley's quest for a highlight reel knockout was one-upped by the otherworldly toughness of his late replacement opponent. O'Malley still recorded the victory via a third-round TKO in a dominant and one-sided performance on Saturday's UFC 264 pay-per-view card, yet it was effort put in by a badly bruised and bloody Chris Moutinho that drew the most cheers by the end of the 135-pound bout. O'Malley already had landed kicks to the head and straight rights, but it was not enough to drop Chris Moutinho. Referee Herb Dean jumped in to save Moutinho from further damage at 4 minutes and 31 seconds of the final round, setting off a plethora of boos inside the T-Mobile Arena. Moutinho, a 28-year-old native of Massachusetts who was making his UFC debut after replacing the injured Louis Smolka, likely secured himself a second date with the promotion as his forward pressure never slowed down despite accruing a tremendous beating. Gilbert Burns vs Stephen Thompson. Wonderboy stayed on the outside, but soon enough, Burns closed the distance shooting for a single leg. Thompson, however, employed a whizzer and fought off the takedown. Burns was able to fire off some knees to his opponent's thigh, and if nothing else, he was earning some control time in winning the positional battle. The Brazilian landed a half guard, with Thompson trying in vain to wall walk up. And when Thompson did work his way up, he ate a knee to the body and several quick punches to the face. A strong round for Burns, though Thompson fired a head kick just as the horn had sounded. The attacks were few and far between in the first half of round 2, but Burns soon shifted momentum, landing on Thompson and at last getting his attention, if not hurting him. On Thompson's next attack, Burns lunged for a leg but couldn't hold on to it, then Burns would fire a leg kick in the final minute, a right hand, then change levels and charge forward to land a takedown. The fight would close with Burns standing over Thompson, landing shots to the back of neck and the head. Obviously, Gilbert Burns came out the winner. Which opponent would make sense for Gilbert Burns to face next? Now on to our main segment of the video. The fight started off with McGregor throwing 2 spinning roundhouse kicks that missed in the opening of the fight. He was able to land a few leg kicks. Dustin responded with the right hand and was able to trade more on the feet. McGregor kept going for leg kicks early and barely missed a right hand. Poirier landed a hard right hand after a leg kick froze him, then Conor attacked with a combination as Poirier smashed him with one of his own. Dustin went for a takedown, causing McGregor to go for a guillotine. but Dustin was able to get out of it as the crowd erupted. Then Dustin rained down elbows that made some contact with McGregor's face. What do y'all think is next for Conor in his MMA career? Will he fight again, or will his career be finished here? Let us know in the comments below.
This is not over. If we have to take this outside with him, it's all outside. We don't give a
Alright MMA fans, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, make sure to hit the notification bell, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Also, don't forget to comment below what video you want to see next.